So this is the exact sort of thing that makes Xbox pretty worthless, in my opinion. And I get it that there's going to be a lot of people that will jump to Microsoft's defense and say something along the lines of, well, Microsoft doesn't, care just about the console. You can do this, that, or the other thing. The thing is that Microsoft started doing that stuff a decade ago, and it hasn't helped gain really anybody anywhere else, right? Like, they talk about things, we've got this amount of hours more on cloud gaming or whatever, which they don't really ever elaborate on how many people that is. Is it people just trying it? A lot of people, by the way, will boot up the cloud thing because it gets you points, and then they turn it off or whatever. So it's like, everything can be very skewed. But I saw this and I'm like, this is exactly what I'm talking about. I'm an Xbox fan, and it's pretty clear that, Microsoft doesn't necessarily care about, the Xbox platform, the Xbox console, and the fact that they don't call it something else. Like, I would almost prefer that they call it, Microsoft gaming or something at this point, because I feel like they're besmirching the Xbox name at this point, and it's just, I don't know, I don't like it. It's like kind of beating a dead horse at this point. So hopefully, maybe they change that or whatever, because I feel like they built up the name Xbox to be something that, this isn't. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into it. You guys can let me know what you feel about this article down below, because like I said, it's very interesting. So according to this, the article says Forza Horizon 5 is on the PS5, so I no longer need an Xbox. I guess everything truly is an Xbox, even my PlayStation. And this is interesting because I was talking about this before, and I want to point out, yes, people will go, well, PC exists, so blah, blah, blah. You didn't need PlayStation, blah, blah, blah. Sony's got games on PC. Listen, there is a large group of gamers in this world, myself included, that never want to game on a PC, will never game on a PC, right? I game on consoles. I couldn't care less about PC, so I'm a console gamer, right? There's a huge difference between a console maker putting a game on PC and then putting it on the competition's console, right? Because once again, if the blue box can play blue box games and green box games, but the green box can only play green box games, that's a problem. So anyway, it says, and again, this was what I was worried about all along. Forza Horizon 5 is the entire reason why I have an Xbox Series S. I'm not really a car guy in real life. If money practically and burning through fossil fuels were less of a concern, I'd get a fun hot hatch with a stick for sure. I don't care about luxuries or exotics, and I drive a 12-year-old Prius. Well, this guy sounds like kind of a pretentious prick. But anyway, Forza Horizon 5 so skillfully melds open-world exploration, intense competition, replayability, while also letting me try out dozens of cars that he's daydreamed about. His colleagues' review of Forza Horizon 5 pushed him over the edge. A couple months later, he got his hands on his first Xbox console and put a startling amount of time into the game. He was far more addicted than he expected, having a blast with Forza Horizon 5. And now it's available on PS5. His preferred console is probably the biggest Xbox-born franchise to go multi-platform, and just the latest example of how Microsoft appears to be done thinking about console exclusives. More broadly, the company has given plenty of signs that the console that sits under your TV are not its main priority. Moving a high-profile game like Forza Horizon 5 is just another example. It says for him, though, it works because he doesn't need an Xbox. He'll probably keep his around because he's a bit of a pack rat, and there's still a bit of handful titles on Game Pass he'd like to play at some point, but there are so few games that you actually need an Xbox for at this point that he could dump it and not really miss much of a beat. There are already tons of games I'll never get around to trying, without worrying about Game Pass. And unsurprisingly, Forza Horizon 5 runs perfectly on PS5. Everything that makes the game great on Xbox shows up here, and generally he prefers the DualSense controller over the Xbox controller. The triggers feel great for pumping gas and brakes, and haptic feedback is generally better too. He's a little sad to give up all his progression on the Xbox version, specifically the garage full of cars that he earned, but it's also fun to start fresh and have a reason to unlock everything again. Even though the game is 3.5 years old, it's still worth picking up, and developer Playground Games has consistently added new content, including Hot Wheels and Rally Adventure expansions from 2022 and 2023, and along with the PS5 launch, there's a new Horizon Realms coming to all platforms that rounds up 11 limited time evolving world areas that were previously featured only in seasonal updates. He says he's not expecting more in the way of major content updates, but if you're new to the game on PS5, there's more than enough to keep you busy for a long time. Talking about it, he says visually the game matches the Series X with 60 FPS mode, 30 FPS graphics mode. It's an upgrade over the Series S version that he spent time with, as that console maxed out at 1440p, and the graphical upgrades that go beyond just resolution. But Forza Horizon 5 is an absolutely gorgeous game regardless of what console you're playing it on. As it turns out, he says there's no real reason to buy it on the PS5 unless you're looking to streamline how much is under your TV. As it turns out, that's where he is. He needed to cut back on his hoarding tendencies, and as much as he appreciates the tiny footprint of the Series S and solid selection in Game Pass titles, he does have, he doesn't have unlimited space, and he's just basically talking about this. But this last line really was interesting. He says, I really appreciate what I got out of this little console over the years, but I don't think it's a stretch to say that 75% of the time I used the Series S as a Forza machine, but hey, Microsoft got its cash from me and I got years of enjoyment, so I'm not mad. I just hope if there's another Forza Horizon game in the future that it hits PlayStation at the same time as Xbox, assuming there's still a console called Xbox, that is. So again, very much saying, okay, well, this is somebody who bought an Xbox, who's in that current batch of 25, 28 million people that are on an Xbox that won't own one next generation. Right, so there's many people like myself who buy both consoles, both platforms, to play these games, and we do so because we're gamers, and there's something exclusive on this one, there's something exclusive on that one, and at the end of the day, I think that's why we continue to buy the different platforms, and this is probably going to be for a lot of people. They're going to go, well, why on earth would I buy the next Xbox? And that's really a good point if you think about it. Why would you? It just honestly doesn't make sense for a lot of people, and the big fear for me is you have Xbox kind of turning into what I would call like the next Wii U or something. It's just to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense for them to even have this thing exist, the next Xbox. So I look at this and I think, man, this is a really, really weird situation to kind of be in, but at the end of the day, Microsoft kind of put themselves in this situation, and from where I'm kind of looking, I'm not really sure how the heck they could really get out of this situation, because they really, if you think about it, just the way that they've kind of handled this situation with talking and keeping Xbox owners in the loop and things like that, they've really kind of failed to do that, in my opinion. It's I know a lot of people go, oh well, they've been being honest, and they're doing this and they're doing that. I haven't really looked at it as that. I've looked at it as they've kind of realistically kept us in the dark. I mean, they don't really keep us abreast of anything. Whenever you hear them talk about quote unquote Xbox, it's always how things are growing on the cloud, or how things are growing on PC, or how excited they are about the Switch 2. We don't really ever see a situation where they're hyping up the actual hardware themselves anymore. And everybody will point to that Sarah Bond stuff about the most powerful things, so it's going to be the most powerful this or that, and it's just again, they've made so many promises, it's hard to really kind of believe or buy into any of the stuff that they're talking about. So, you know, for me, when I see stuff like this, it's like there's going to be millions of people. There's probably millions of people who bought both a PS5 and an Xbox, and they're not going to do that next generation. You know, there's not really going to be a reason to. You know, when the Halos and the Gears of Wars and stuff are all on PlayStation as well. And you know, again, I think Microsoft will be successful as a publisher, but I think their days are really, really numbered in terms of what they can have. Of hardware, you know, I think that they don't care about the hardware. They're counting down the days until they can 100% get out of the hardware business, you know. So I don't know. What's your guys' thoughts on this? Are you picking up Forza Horizon 5 on PS5? Let me know. Rack 'em up. Crap Gamer out.